Hello guys, and thanks for checking out this mod video for Fallout 4, Daisy Johnson, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. As you may have guessed, I'm a big fan of the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and for a long time I'd wanted to create a mod to bring the show to Fallout. I figured what better way to celebrate the show's 100th episode. To be honest, this was actually finished in December, I just didn't get around to creating a video until now. This originally started simply as a personal project for my own playthrough, but what I ended up with was something that I was really quite proud of, and decided to share with the community. This is by far the most involved mod that I've ever made, introducing new gameplay elements, items, perks, and gear. Because I intended it for my own playthrough, I designed it to be used for a new game, so keep that in mind. What I wanted to do was create a way to roleplay Fallout 4 as Daisy Johnson, the superhero Quake from the show. First, I wanted to recreate the character's look while still fitting the mood of the game. For her S.H.I.E.L.D. bodysuit, I really didn't have to include anything in my mod. Instead, I encourage you to go download one of my favorite mods, Nitronizer's Proto Vault suit. Just a few minor tweaks and a rename at the workbench, and I had exactly what I was looking for. Quake wouldn't be complete though without her signature gauntlets. For these, I combined and retextured a few other in-game assets, but the real cool thing about these is that they're not just for show, but more on that later. I also wanted to recreate my favorite look for the character from Season 4. For what I called her Inhuman Rebel outfit, I've retextured the Greaser outfit. You also see her signature black cap, which has been remodeled from the vanilla cap. As you may know, most hats in-game force a character to be bald when equipped, but I've remodeled this to, through a little scripting, insert hair when it's equipped. However, even with the mesh tweaks, at least some clipping in third person was inevitable, and due to the nature of this workaround, when the hat is unequipped, the hairstyle to return to had to be hard-coded as the one that I personally chose for the playthrough. So if you don't like what hairstyle I chose, you'll unfortunately have to stick with the vanilla cap and a bald Daisy. Again, I made this mod for myself, and these were things that really didn't bother me. Now, I should say that the best practice for installing any mod that adds content to the game world is to wait to install it until after exiting the vault. Assuming you've done this, you'll see that you receive an item called Quake Power the first time you load up. If you installed the mod before starting a new game, don't worry, we'll cover how to find the Quake Power later. This is a weapon class item, so go into the Pip-Boy and equip it. You'll see when I raise my hands that this is an unarmed type weapon. We can block like we can with any other unarmed weapon. However, when we attack with it... Now, this is obviously the bread and butter of the mod, and why I wanted to make it in the first place. Obviously, what fun would playing as Quake be if you didn't have her superpowers? The Quake Power does have range. You can see that it doesn't go on forever, it eventually dissipates if it doesn't hit something first. Also, if I shoot it at the ground, here you can see that it has no effect on me, obviously. However, you'll notice that each time I use it, it is draining my action points, sort of simulating the toll that Daisy's powers take on her body. I wanted to keep it from being too powerful and limit it from being abused. If, for instance, she uses her powers too much and attempts to use her stamina, you can see that she becomes staggered and takes health damage as well. Therefore, you can continue to use her powers if you're desperate, but it does come with a price. Also, if we go into the Pip-Boy here, we'll see that just like in the show, her powers are steadily crippling her arms as well. Using the power normally only does slight arm damage, but using it without enough stamina increases the arm damage considerably, until her arms eventually break. Now, you'll remember earlier I said that her gauntlets were not just for show. We see here that they offer some modest energy resistance, which is fully moddable like any other piece of armor, and give a boost to your endurance and agility stats. But, if we exit the Pip-Boy, we can see the real cool thing about him. You'll notice that her stamina is draining much less while wearing the gauntlets. You'll still take the health penalty if you use the power too much, but you are able to use it more often before that happens. You'll also see that, for the same amount of usage, her arms took significantly less damage. Although they trade in the protection of other armor pieces, the cost reduction make her gauntlets a must-have piece of gear for the character, in my opinion. Now it's time to have a little fun and actually use all this stuff.
Oh, now it's on.
As I said earlier, you can block with the power equipped, and a successful block will deliver a short burst knocking the attacker away. You'll see it does do a little damage to the attacker, but just like using the power to attack, blocking drains your stamina. It also slightly damages your arms. The damage I'm doing to enemies might be a little buffed because I think I've set the game to very easy for this demonstration, but regardless, the power is meant to be more as a support skill than a true attack anyway, knocking enemies down and back. That's even more so true for blocking. However, to be fair, with the right perks, it can dish out some real punishment. Now let's get a raider with a little more health. As you can see, enemies do take fall damage based on the height of the knockback, so you can use this to your advantage. Unfortunately, the game only calculates height for fall damage, not force, so no matter how hard you throw them into a wall, it won't do damage, unlike Skyrim. Let's get a little more dangerous. Now keep in mind, I'm only level 5 here, so you can see the power really doesn't do much damage, even with the difficulty buff. And because the Death Claw is so large, the force is not nearly as strong. At this point, a sane person would probably use this opportunity to run, or you could mix in more effective attacks. Again, this is meant more as a support skill than an actual main weapon. Depending on the angle of the Quake, and with a little luck, you can affect the launch height, so if you're feeling a little daring, you can wait for the big baddies to get up close to try and go for a launch high enough to kill them, or at least cripple their legs. Nope. Well, you also run the risk of that happening, though, too. If we take a look at the perk tree, you'll see that I've replaced the Locksmith branch with a new 3-level Inhuman Training branch. Let's read the description for level 1. Focus and training have given you greater control over your inhuman abilities. Your Quake Power does 2 times damage, and you can now shatter advanced locks, plus Expert at level 7 and Master at level 18. This condenses the old Locksmith skill into a single perk point, like I personally think that it should have been to begin with. This builds on the Inhuman Finesse trait the mod starts you out with, but more on that later. At the second rank, we see the Quake Power does 3 times damage and has 20% increased range. And at rank 3, the damage multiplier increases to 4 times. Now this last little bit, unfortunately, is just for show at the moment. I wanted to simulate Daisy's ability to launch herself into the air, but this would require editing game settings via script, and to my knowledge, the script extender doesn't allow for that at the moment. Even if it did, I've read this is very risky and prone to corruption, so for now, I just bear with doing it via console or any edits. Consider that a work in progress, that just may simply never happen due to the limitations of the game. If we take level 1 of the perk, and we have to refresh the Pip-Boy for the stat change to take effect, we can see that the power does 5 damage now, and that's per blast. I think the game factors in force when it calculates damage, since they are explosions, because obviously 5 is a little more than 2 times 2, but I'm not really worried about it. If we take rank 2, we can see that the range has increased, along with the damage increase. When we were testing the power out the first time, we were at just about the max range, but now we can as you can see, back up a little farther and still hit the building. Here I've set up a room with 4 locked containers, novice through master. If we open up the Pip-Boy, we can see the trait I talked about earlier, Inhuman Finesse. As it says, you can now fine-tune the vibrations from your power to shatter novice locks. This safe was a novice lock, and as you can see, the prompt has changed to Shatter Lock. If we press E, voila! You no longer have to deal with the minigame, no effort, just open sesame. Over here, you can see that the advanced lock does not have the option to shatter it. For that, we'll need the Inhuman Training Rank 1. I'll just give myself a level here. Now, if I take the perk, you'll see that I'll be able to shatter the advanced lock now too. While the expert and masters stay too tough. Now, if I level myself up to level 7, I can get the expert. And at level 18, the master becomes breakable. You'll notice that you no longer get experience for shattering locks. I keep going back and forth on whether or not I want to include that or not. I think it's personally a fair trade-off for not having to deal with the minigame anymore. Earlier, I showed you that one component of Inhuman Training Rank 3 that simply isn't possible to implement via script at the moment was increasing jump height. If you are interested in using that, I'll show you how now. Now, I believe this can be added to your custom ini files, so you don't have to do it by hand each time when the game loads, but I'll show you now in-game for demonstration purposes. If we close the Pip-Boy, we just have to open up the console and type set gs f jump height min 330, then enter. 330 I've found gives the best balance between being able to jump usefully high and not taking fall damage. The default is 90 if you want to change it back. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this is pretty fun. You can see that I can jump high, just high enough to reach most second story destinations. And unless you go recklessly jumping off full speed from the top of buildings, you probably won't take too much or any fall damage. I should also note that the sound effect only fires when the Quake Power is equipped. If I had any other weapon equipped, you'd still get the jump effect, but there would be no sound playing. One thing though, and this only occurs if you're using third person, is the game seems to apply jump animations slightly different than in first person, so the sound effect seems to inconsistently fire when moving and jumping at the same time. Again, minor inconvenience, but I made the mod for me, and I don't play in third person, so I'm not really that bothered by it. The last bit of content for me to cover is where to actually find all this gear that the mod adds, as well as the Quake Power item if you accidentally installed the mod before leaving the vault. Since we're role-playing as Daisy Johnson, an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., it would make sense that her gear would be at work. Now, I don't want to spoil the fun of finding the place for you, so let's just say that we're at a classified government facility not far from her home. You do get sent here in a quest quite early in the game, so don't worry if you're not quite catching on. In this facility, I've placed a locker where you can find all of Daisy's gear. Her Inhuman Rebel outfit, her favorite cap, her gauntlets, and a spare Quake Power item is in the locker in case you should ever lose the first one or didn't get one on installation. That should give you everything you need for your adventure. Lastly, I just want to go over with you how to prepare the mod to be uninstalled should you want to do so. Because of the changes to the perk tree and the scripts involved with making the powers work, I've prepared a simple little utility to run some cleanup for you. If we open up the Chem Lab, under the Utilities section you can see an item called Quake Uninstall. As you can see, it says prepares mod for uninstallation, so we just want to craft one of these. Go go to our Pip-Boy, and it'll be under the aid section. What this is going to do is refund any points invested in the Inhuman Training perk, as well as unequip and remove the Quake Power item if applicable. Up here you can see little messages telling you how many perk points have been refunded, though the perks aren't quite removed yet. And if you had the Quake Power equipped, it would let you know that it's been unequipped and removed. You should now be able to save and uninstall the mod like you normally would. Just like to say thank you guys for watching this video and for downloading my mod should you choose to do so. Links are down below in the description to the mod page, and hope you have fun.